Um, but you don't get to use your first name, and I wasn't too worried about anonymity. When your last name's Peachy, there is no anonymity, and anonymity for me now has become a situation where it's more important to the person that needs to get in these rooms, my anonymity, than my own anonymity. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me anymore. I'm willing to tell you anything if it might help you. And by the way, Jay, thanks for reminding me that I can be an asshole, because I can. I was a coach for 23 years. My philosophy about this is if we are not direct and honest, what the hell good are we doing? And trust me, I was so full of shit my first 3 or 4 years when I was in this program. I was so filled with ego and caring about what you thought about me, and it was ridiculous. I can say that now, it's kind of funny, because here's one of the unusual things about us that we understand that other people don't. The worse we are, whether it's in our attitude or in the conditions we're living in, or most importantly, in the level of addiction that we've reached, the more important, the more good we can do, the better the recovery feels to us. And that's why I'm glad to be at the Progress House, because this is real recovery. This is real recovery being done by people who know what real addiction is. Now, I'm an alcoholic. Doesn't mean I didn't use plenty of drugs. I used plenty of drugs. I loved marijuana. My ego has a lot to do with the way I acted, and it still does. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I like being the center of attention to about 45 guys. But I developed an ability. I moved from this center of Indianapolis to Arcadia, Indiana. And those guys up there, they like to drive around and talk about fighting. They never had any fights, but boy, they like to talk about it. And I was worried what they thought about me, and so I practiced. This is how ridiculous I am about ego. I would stick my hand into the bag of marijuana, and I even got so good at this that I'd leave the paper in the package. So I would take the paper out one-handed while I'm driving and get the marijuana. I'd already cleaned it, of course, because this was a trick. And I'd roll that joint one-handed, do this, and light it, and I could do that in about 2 minutes, and I couldn't wait till I had guys in my car. So, I mean, how fucking ridiculous is that? That I care what people, that I care that people think I can roll a joint better than you can. What the hell? I've been to the Progress House many, many times. I've been to several meetings here. I love the breakfast meeting. There's always a good cook or two in here. But the first time I came here was to bring a guy. Now, picture this. I've got about 3 years in the program. I don't know anything about helping other people. But this guy, I liked him. And he was living in his car in the parking lot of the club that I go to. I live in Hampton County now, and so I go to North Club. And this guy was living in his car at the old club, and he had no job prospects. He had no money at all. So thinking that I was going to save his ass, I convinced him that you need to get a roof over your head. There's no good for an alcoholic or an addict to be living in his car or on the streets. There's only one reason he would tolerate that, because that's where he can use. And so I said, you need to get a roof. I've heard of this place. I know all about it, right? I've never been here before, but it's called the Progress House. So I bring him down here on a Sunday morning. I've given him my winter coat. I've given him $40. I've given him my big book, right? I'm thinking I'm an angel. I'm thinking I'm a great guy. And I've been talking to him about the steps that he should be working on. And he goes, Peachy, I understand what you're saying about this third step, but how will I know if I've done the third step? And me, with my college degree in bullshit, said, well, you'll see signs. I didn't know what else to say. You'll see signs. And we heard this clatter, and it was a wheel rolling down the street, like you would see at the 500, like after an accident. We heard not a thing. We just see this wheel rolling towards us. It's doing about 20 miles an hour. It's not a tire, it's a wheel. It's got the hubcap in the center. Still got the hubcap on, and it's coming toward us, and it, you know that post that's in the corner of the parking lot on the outside? It turns and heads directly for that thing, and we're standing less than 15 feet, and it rolls right up to that post, hits it, jumps up about 15 feet in the air, and then clatters like this to the ground. And I looked at him and I said, see? Recovery is different for me now. Recovery is a real thing that I've got to do on a daily, minute-by-minute basis. Now, I've been trying to quit using alcohol the way I did since I was 29 years old. But I didn't quit. I just changed the way I drank. I got married. to a girl that was real bossy, and she had 2 kids, and she did not fuck around. I literally married her to help me control my life, because I don't want to go into what my life was like before that, but I don't need to. You guys already know what it was like. So for 18 years, I controlled my drinking, not realizing that normal people don't have to control their drinking. And the reason I did that, and you guys will understand this, is so that I didn't have to stop entirely. So it didn't matter that from Monday morning to Thursday afternoon, I didn't even drink a drop. What mattered was that I still had that obsession with alcohol. The reason why I denied myself alcohol, well, it had a lot to do with what the things that happened when I did not deny myself alcohol, because I couldn't stop drinking once I started. It was, you guys understand that. I changed the way I drank so that I wouldn't have to stop entirely. Does that make sense? I did that for 18 years, and I ended up an insane person. When I came to, and Jay knows this, I've known Jay as long as he's been in the program, and I've got an unusual attitude. I have a way of looking at things. I have a way about talking about things, and I do not fuck around. And what's happened to me now is what I'm not fucking around with is not the lies to make you think that I'm smarter or better looking or have a prettier wife or more money than you, like I used to think it mattered. I don't fuck around with the recovery, because this is a fatal disease. And you guys understand that too. I lived in a halfway house for 10 months. I understand what it's like to live here. I understand what it's like to watch dozens of people go out because they've used. And those people that do that, if you think about it, they're living in the last roof they're allowed to live in. Well, they could go back to jail. All they'd have to do is do something, and they would go back to jail. They'd have a roof. The state's glad to give us a roof, keep us off the streets, because we kill people. But these people that use when they are in the situations that we're in, where we have nowhere else that'll take us, think about that. That's the obsession with alcohol and drugs. And by the way, when I say the word alcohol, replace it with whatever drug it is that you're thinking about all the time. Because if you're like me, you have a mental obsession with that drug. And if you're like me, that mental obsession doesn't go away. I came into AA in 2006. I've been sober since 2010, except for one event, which I'll tell you about. It's kind of funny, although it's a huge resentment for me. But so I've been doing this a long, long time. And I still have a mental obsession with alcohol. I still am angry that I can't use it. I still wish I could use it. I still wonder if I can use it. It's not that the delusion that I can't drink alcohol like a normal man is gone. I mean, I got rid of that delusion when I was still in high school. I'm one of those people, and I'm sure there's people like me in here. I became an alcoholic really, really quickly. But the reason why I'm here tonight is because God gave me an opportunity to be here. It's not because I think I know more about this than anybody else. I'd be an idiot to tell this particular group that I know about the problem than you do. And I'd be lying if I said I know about the solution. What I know about the solution is what matters is what I am doing. And I'm not here thinking that I can convince any one of you. I'm here because I know that my recovery depends on me carrying the message and practicing the principles in all my affairs. And the principles mean the 12 steps. That's just the way I look at it. I don't complicate things anymore. Practicing the principles in all my affairs means, am I applying the steps in a situation where I need help? And I need help all the time, because I have this brain. And this brain literally, if it walked in the room right now, I'd say, get the fuck out, we don't need you right now. Because my brain lies to me. And it wants me to lie to you. And when I'm up here talking to people like this group, if I lie, you're going to know it immediately, aren't you? You're going to know immediately if I say something where I'm full of shit. I am convinced that without the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would still be as miserable as I was when I was 48 years old. And that's pretty fucking miserable. Can you imagine a person that quit using alcohol or drugs, because I liked marijuana, at 29 years old, and at 48 years old, all of a sudden I have no idea what to do, how to act, what to say. I had some achievements in life. I'd done pretty well, but it was all gone. I was living in the worst house in Cicero, Indiana. Think about that. And I did nothing about that. When I moved into that house, it had broken windows. This is Indiana. When I moved out, and it's in the middle of that time that I finally listened to someone who said, you should do something. And I started with Celebrate Recovery for 10 months. That did not work for me. I eventually got into AA, and immediately I recognized these people they're not lying. They are telling the truth about themselves and about what I should do. Maybe I should listen to them. But you see, that's not the solution. Everybody that comes into AA or NA knows that these people are telling the truth. Not everybody stops using forever. And I don't know why. But the reason I'm here and so happy to be here, the Progress House, rather than where I normally go, which is in the middle of Hampton County, where you hear a lot of things like, I don't even think about alcohol unless I'm in. You go, fuck, are you talking about? I don't understand that. I didn't lose my wife, my job, or my house. I didn't kill anybody. There's one that fucking pisses me off. Asshole, somebody in the room that hears you say that may have killed someone. Why do you insist on saying that? And what does it matter? You're in a meeting of recovery. And what matters is what you think about yourself. And if I come up here and start trying to press you with bullshit and lies, I know what I'm doing. And I'm not in recovery. I'm in danger. I wish, this is how arrogant I am. By the way, the first time I read the book, I was looking for mistakes. Because I was pissed off because I thought I could have written a better book. Who thinks like that? I do. We do. But I wish that I could add a phrase to the end of that 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening, keyword, as a result of these steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I try, another keyword, to carry the message to others and to practice these principles in all my affairs. I wish we could add the phrase, in order to continue having a spiritual awakening. Because that step is not for the benefit of other people. That step is for the benefit of me. Because what matters is not what you think about my recovery, but what I think about my recovery. Happy birthday, Jensen. The other day, Jensen made a topic, and everybody around the room started talking, and they weren't talking about the topic. They were talking about how great they were, and it pissed me off. And when it got around to me, I talked about the fuck. What Jensen's talking about, it requires us to think about it properly using the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't care how much time you have in the program. I care about this man just fucking laid his heart out and told us the truth. And what we should do is follow his example and stop lying to ourselves. Because I am addicted to alcohol. I have a problem with alcohol. I was born, I could blame it on my genetics, I could blame it on anything. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what the cause is. When I drink alcohol, when I put it in my body, I'm going to want more. I could say need more, it doesn't matter. I'm going to drink more. That's what matters. I do not have the capability of stopping. The book here, and thanks to the young man that lent me the book, I forgot to bring mine in, and I may refer to it because there's 2 places in that book that changed my attitude and saved my life, literally. But the book says in the very first paragraph of We Agnostics, it says, if, when I want to quit drinking, I cannot quit entirely. Remember, I quit drinking alcoholically from 29 and drank a little bit from 48? I mean, that's me. I could not quit entirely. I didn't even want to. Or if, once you start drinking, you have no idea how much you're going to take. And this is true with alcohol, it's true with marijuana, it's true with crack cocaine, it's true with everything. If you have no idea how much you're going to take, in other words, you don't have the ability to stop. You use it even though you know you're probably not going to stop that night until what? You run out. Well, then it says you're probably an alcoholic. A good friend of mine, he's 89. I've been in the program since 2006. I knew him when he was younger. He didn't get sober until he was 58. He was an atheist or an agnostic. I finally convinced him, no, you're not an atheist. You're an agnostic. You just don't know. His name was Marine Bob. And every time he spoke, Jay don't remember this, he said, I'm Bob, I'm probably an alcoholic. And I loved that, because that attitude of not complying, not being a member of a group, that's me. If I wanted to belong to a group, you guys would not be the group I want to belong to. You know, I'd love to go biking with you or something, or whatever it is you like to do, but, you know, no. So I'm probably an alcoholic. And what the book says is key next. It says, therefore, we think you have a problem that requires a spiritual solution. And later on in the book, it tells us what the spiritual solution is. It's not church. It's not religion. It's not even God. If it were God, then Hindus who have 500 gods, they wouldn't be able to recover, would they? If they were required to use my God, they'd have no chance. I know a lot of Hindus that know more about this shit than I do, the spiritual side. So what I've done is I've decided that for me, the spiritual aspect is, how do I feel? Remember I talked to you about it matters that I tell the truth? It matters to me. The rigorous honesty is not what I tell you, it's what I am telling myself. I know when I'm lying to myself. Raise your hand if you know what I'm saying. I know when I'm lying to myself. I know when I'm going the wrong direction. I know when I'm going the right direction, don't I? Why do I choose to continue to go down the wrong direction? If I know, in my case it's alcohol, if I know it's going to lead to nothing but misery like it has many times in my life, why do I insist on using it? Well, it's because I'm an alcoholic and I drink for the effect. When I no longer have that ability to get that effect, that calm, that peace of mind, that ability to forget what's bothering me, even though when I get drunk, the last thing I do is forget I can talk about it, and I'll lie to you then. If I'm mad at the guy that owes me $2,000, I'm going to tell you it's $3,000. Why? I consider it efficient. It'll help you understand why I'm still pissed about it. In other words, I'm not working the steps of alcoholics. I'm anonymous. I'm just drunk and yakking. I'm wasting your time and mine. And I know that you guys have the book. I got a light went off in my head when I read that. What do they call it? That extra part of the book, not the index, but it's an addendum or something on spirituality.
Appendix.
Yeah, the appendix. Thank you. It says in there, a profound personality change sufficient to recover from alcoholism. That's what we're after. And that doesn't mean I change a lot in my outer ways. It means I change how I think about myself in here. And so I become rigorously honest, at least about myself. Because again, if I'm bullshitting you about something we've all done most of our lives, you know I'm bullshitting. I love to drunk walk. I have ADD, which means that the last thing I should be using is a depressant. I need a stimulant, but I use alcohol. And so when I got drunk, it was a story, and there's lots of stories, and I could entertain this crowd with some stories. What I can't do is I can't shock you. I remember one time I'm in college, and I had the most wonderful excuse to drink that I've had before or since. A friend of mine, his girlfriend was my girlfriend's best friend, and they decided to go to, I didn't come from a rich family, but I'm the youngest of 7 kids, so by the time I was able to go to college, my dad insisted and he had the money because the other kids were on their own, right? So I go to this college in Holland, Michigan. I went there, I didn't apply until July. School started August 18th. That's because I'm an alcoholic, I didn't give a fuck. Why do you think I went to that school? Because at the time the drinking age was 18 years old. I could drink legally. Who does that shit? We do. We do. So this guy and his girlfriend and my girlfriend decided they were going to go with a couple of frat boys. And the only reason I wasn't in a frat was because I could drink plenty. And I could drink more if I wasn't in a frat. I'd drink with this frat on one weekend and this frat with another weekend. That's the way I looked at this shit. So he was suicidal. And so I grabbed the triple sec I had in my closet. I don't know why I had triple sec. I never drank it before. It's just, why would you throw away alcohol? We drank plenty of beer. We drank plenty of whiskey. We drank that triple sec. That shit's nasty. And he fell asleep, and so I fell asleep next to him. My parents were in town, so my twin brother finds me later in the morning. I'm asleep in the bottom of the shower with the water pouring on me. I'm fully dressed, and I've been there for a couple of hours. And in 2 hours, I have to be at brunch with my parents. I take a bite, I put the food down, I just tell the truth, I am fucked up, I'm still drunk. I didn't say it that way because my mother was a church librarian, but they knew the truth. The next day I got spots on my body. So I didn't have alcohol poisoning, the kind where you know you're sick and you need to go to the hospital, get a banana bag so you feel better. I had real alcohol poisoning, the kind where those spots didn't go away for 5 days. And the thing about it is, the point I'm trying to make is that's not the last time I had alcohol poisoning. I had it twice. Who does that? We do. So there's got to be a solution. There better be a solution. I hope there's a solution. I pray there's a solution. The solution is simply not stopping using. There's something else that we have to do. Because once we stop using and we no longer can escape, or we no longer run the world, a lot of us were big shots in the world. I mean, we were the people that people got their alcohol from. I trained many people how to drink alcohol. I'm sure many of you guys have sold drugs to people. It's just a fact. We have big shotism. And we think that we can recover because we're big shots, because we're smart. We think we can just decide. But when we stop using, we are left with the rest of the world, aren't we? And the world doesn't change. People look at us the way they're going to look at us. We can't change that. And if we're alcoholics and addicts, they look at us and we have a stigma. We're dumbasses. They think we don't have willpower. The fuck we don't. It takes a lot of willpower to live the way I live. Doesn't it? We're not weak. We're not stupid. I hesitate to say this, but I want you to remember, because later on you might realize it's true about yourself. I believe that we are kinder, more caring, and more intelligent than other people. No wonder we have problems with the way the world is. So when I stop using alcohol or drugs, the world's still going to affect me. Isn't it a real good idea if I change the way I react to the world? If the world was my excuse for drinking, why would I want to live in a situation where I'm angry or sad or feel sorry for myself or afraid? And if you pay very much attention, not in meetings, to what the book actually says or what your sponsor is saying, you ought to remember those things. That ought to ring a bell. Fear, anger, self-pity, self-centeredness. Those are the character defects that Bill is writing about on page about 63, isn't it, Jay? Where he's talking about the 4-step. Those are the things that fuck me up. And I sabotage myself. When I'm angry, I'm not just angry, I'm in a rage. I can't stop thinking about it. And it's the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that help me make that change. They actually tell me, stop thinking this way. Cognitive behavioral therapy, 3 big words. I had no idea what they are until the therapist told me I ought to start thinking about it, because what he taught me, what cognitive, that means no, behavioral therapy, is my thinking determines how I feel. So it doesn't make sense that I ought to change the way I think. It does. And what's really important is I change the way I react. I'm a judgmental son of a bitch, okay? And so when I'm in a meeting, now I'm not this way anymore because I've tried to change. I'm still trying to change. But when I would hear people say, well, I did the 10th step last night because the other day I called my wife a bitch, and so I apologized to her. Look at me. And they smile. And everyone says, good, you're changing. The fuck you aren't. The 10th step is not an apology. The 10th step is a change that I make inside myself. I continue to take personal inventory. In other words, I look at my own way I'm thinking, my own thoughts, my own actions. And when I'm wrong, I promptly admit it. Remember earlier I said, and you guys, most of you raised your hand, we know when we're thinking wrong. We need to admit that we're thinking wrong really fast. We need to have that rigorous honesty. So the 10th step is not an apology. The 10th step is me recognizing when the shit that I worked on in the 4th and the 5th step, fear, anger, self-pity, self-centeredness, which drove me, when it crops up. And the book is so cool. It was written by geniuses, and I believe divinely inspired by whatever God you believe in. Because in the 12th step, in the 12 and 12, it talks about it in the 10th step. It talks about first calm the disturbance within yourself. How many of you know what I'm talking about when I say, when I was pissed, I could drink more? When I was afraid, although I'm a guy, I don't want to admit I'm afraid, but I was lying. I'm afraid of everything. When I'm afraid, I need to drink more than I drink otherwise. And then it goes on to say, whenever, this is called the spiritual axiom, whenever I'm upset, the problem is inside of me. So what the 10th step actually is for me is, oh, by the way, I want to say the most important thing I was forgetting, so I was trying to fake it, but here's what it is, and now I forgot it again. Oh, it says when these things crop up. How cool it says that. I mean, I can tell when the book's bullshitting me too. And when it comes to the conclusion, when it gets to the root of the problem, what it's telling me, thank God, because I know it was lying if it didn't, is that I am going to have fear again. I am going to be angry again, rage, let's call it. I'm going to feel sorry for myself again, and I'm going to be self-centered again. What the program and what you people have taught me is I don't need to beat myself up for being a human being any longer. But I better watch my reaction. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have it. It means observe them. And it's smart if I take care of them pretty freaking quickly. So the 10th step is not being cool to my wife, apologizing to her when I've been an asshole. The 10th step is me, why am I being an asshole? Because it's never my wife I was pissed at. By the way, I was married for 18 years. I can tell you some stories. I'll tell you a story. When I thought that I had this shit down, I had 8 months in the program and I thought I knew everything. And I get the letter from my wife's lawyer. And my wife's lawyer, doing his job, he'd written in this letter that she was going to get all the assets that we had, and I was going to pay all the bills that we had. Typical. I'm sure it's happened to several of you. And I'm fucking shaking. I'm so pissed. How can she? She didn't even work for 5 years while I paid for it. I could go on and on about my resentments, right? I love my resentments. And I'm shaking. And this old guy named Hiram. Any of you ever heard of Hiram? Any of you ever met him? He didn't fuck around either. He's who I learned how to talk from. He goes, Peachy, stop. Well, you can tell that I talk a lot, right? My nicknames are Speechy and Preachy. I don't usually stop talking just because someone suggests it. I keep talking, bitching. He goes, Peachy, stop. I keep talking. He goes, Peachy, stop. I knew he wasn't lying to me anymore. I stopped talking. He says, how long were you married? I said, 17 years. I've just been divorced like that month. He said, how long did you live together? I said, 15 years. He said, don't you think living with you for 15 years has something to do with the way she's acting now? I don't like to hear the truth, but I hope you tell me the truth. I learn more from people with 30 days in this program than I do from anybody with 20 years. Those people that have 20 years, they can't tell me anything that I'm not going through right now. But the people with 30 days can remind me of how much I don't want to go back to what they're talking about. And when you've been in the program in recovery for 17 or 18 years like I have, you've seen enough people die. You've seen enough people go out after a number of years to understand that they go right back to where they were before. And you just pray that they come back. And when they come back, what do you do? What do you do? Hell fucking yes. Because we don't judge and we do not, and we do understand. That's one thing I cannot lie about. I have a completely different set of circumstances. There's nobody in this room that has anything like the circumstances of my life. That doesn't mean I should talk to you about what I know and what my circumstances are. If you come back after a couple of years, I'm going to talk to you about the problem and spend more time on recovery. Because we can admit that we are powerless over alcohol, right? We're good at confession. And when I confessed in the old days, all I was doing inside, and this I knew I was doing this, all I was doing was saying, get ready because I'm going to do that again. Confession didn't mean shit to me. It was just a way of getting out of trouble. So when I've learned, when I admit to being powerless over alcohol, what I'm actually doing is I'm admitting it like I've opened the door and allow myself in. I let the idea that I'm powerless over alcohol inside to where I can no longer not care about that. Because that's what I did all that time. When you drank the way I did, immediately greedy, immediately built. I don't want to get into drunk lobby, but I drank greedy from the very fucking start, okay? You know you're an alcoholic. When you choose a college because it's in Michigan where you can drink, you know you're alcoholic. When you buy a house and you're happy, that house I showed you, because it's a quarter of a block away from a bar, and you're happy about that because it's within walking distance, and then later on you find out it's within crawling distance. I did that twice. That's not nothing. Falling off of a chair, onto your hands and knees, walking out of the bar. By the way, the drunks and the bartenders, they don't open the door for you when it happens. You're just a drunk. They're laughing. You walk across the street, the second time I had to stop, let a car go by. You crawl to your house. There's a problem. And it's cool to say the problem's alcohol. It's wonderful. We love doing that. The problem's alcohol. problems with alcohol. I got drunk. The reason I don't know where my car is because I'm drunk. I did that all the time. Back in those days in the 80s, T-tops were new. And they were hard to put on. Do you remember that? They weren't easy to put on. They were worth it. But when you were drunk, you couldn't put those fuckers on. And so what you did, I know that other people have experienced this, you just laid them on there and you left. That's if you remember to even do that, or were sober enough to even do that. There were many times that I opened up my car door and water poured out. That's after I found it at the bar. I did that when I was in college too. I did it 20, 30 times. One time I drive away forgetting that I hadn't latched those T-tops, and I'm driving down the highway between Arcadia and Cicero, Indiana. I'm getting up to about 65 miles an hour. I hear a whoosh. I look just in time in the rearview mirror to see that thing landing. It exploded like a bomb went off. There wasn't a piece of glass anywhere. I mean, you would think that I would stop drinking, right? Of course I'm not going to stop drinking. You know when most of us stop drinking? A lot of us stop for a little while when we're in jail or in the hospital, but most of us, the vast majority of us, most people that say they're alcoholics, they aren't. Most of us stop drinking when we die. I mean, you get to choose. You have to be rigorous honest with yourself. Nobody here, I don't care how depressed you are or whatever mental illness you have, if you're really honest with yourself, you do not want to die. It's impossible for you to want to die, really. You may want to solve the problems, you may want them to go away, but alcohol is no way to make a problem go away, is it? So once I let that idea in, what do I have to do? And what do I say to a guy who's come back after 2 years and hasn't been to a meeting for 2 years and asks me, what do you think? Well, I think that you better come to believe, meaning that you didn't before, now you do, in a power greater than yourself. I could stop right there because that's what I did for 3 years. I believe I tested out of steps 2 and 3 because I believed in God. Why the fuck do I need to listen to you about God? My mother's the church librarian, for Christ's sake. I've got a legacy. They're going to let me in that fraternity because of my mother. There's a second part to that step. It's real important that you understand that the steps mean exactly what they say. They mean no more and no less. You're lying to yourself if you think they do. It says that can restore you to sanity. I believed in God. I didn't believe he could restore me to sanity. And if I thought he did, and that meant not drinking alcohol, I didn't want anything to do with that. So when that guy comes back after 2 years, and I already know this, I'm going to talk to him about that. And that's what I suggest to you, is that you get honest with yourself so that you can start being honest with other people. We'll get to the 12th step eventually. Here's the tough part. Made a decision. I have no problem making a decision. I make decisions all the time. To let this thing in the world that I'm becoming aware of that can help me to restore me to sanity, I gotta let it, don't I? And I didn't have any idea what will and life meant. Those are esoteric terms. Someone has to have a life to understand what life is, or they have to have willpower to understand what will is. And Bill, anyway, he was just showing off when he wrote those words. I heard a guy with 30 days, I had 60 days, so I wasn't listening to him, and I didn't like his sponsor, so when he said my sponsor said, I immediately ignored him. Somehow God opened up my ears, and that kid said, my sponsor taught me to change those 2 words, will and life, to thoughts and action. That's what we need to do. We need to come make a decision. That doesn't mean it happens, and it doesn't happen quickly, but it's certainly not easy, to let our thoughts and actions go to a different place than where they used to be, don't we? And then and only then can we go on with the next steps. So I come in 2006. I've been in Celebrate Recovery, which is a church thing. The only thing I liked about it is the girl that sang hymns to us was real pretty. But they had overeaters in there whose wives made them come. They had drug addicts in there. They actually had sex addicts in there. I didn't understand it. I didn't like these people, and I didn't learn a thing from them. Because I wasn't capable of listening to anybody. I was only capable of judging them. But I'm so fucked up. I'm so proud of this. My therapist says, I need you to sign a paper that gives me permission to speak to your sponsor, because he knew I wasn't doing a goddamn thing. And I thought, how cool, this guy needs to speak. I'm an attention seeker. That's pretty fucking cool. So they talk and they decide that I need to go to AA, and I said, what the fuck ever? And I go to the Carvel Club, to a men's meeting. I'm pissed about that because I like women. I don't need to listen to any guys. So I go to this men's meeting, and the sponsor tells me, don't you say a word other than you're peachy, you're an alcoholic. And that pissed me off. And I heard nothing but whining coming from these guys, and I fucking hated it. Hated it. I didn't realize until years later that what I hated was they were talking about me. That's what I didn't like. Because when I was in the 7th grade, my father was an alcoholic. Again, I'm trying not to go into my past. I don't need to talk to my past here. I can do that in Hamilton County. They get impressed with that shit. Some girl might go out with me if I scare her bad enough. But you guys, I can't talk about alcoholism enough to where it's going to impress you, can I? But I knew about alcoholism because I never, ever saw my father in any day of his entire life without the smell of alcohol on him until he got Alzheimer's and he forgot what alcohol was. So I'm in 8th grade. I'm in 7th grade. My best friend is Keith Lashley, lives right across from the Carville Club. This is where I grew up, down here. And I said to him, I'm watching the men walk into the Carville Club, and I didn't know anything about it. I just knew what it was. And I said, I will never need to go into that building. Now, why the fuck is a 7th grader having such thoughts? Somehow I knew, didn't I? Because I took my first drink of real alcohol at 16 years old. And it changed immediately. I slept outdoors that night. I had a half pint. I'm going to go into a little bit of the past. I had a half pint. It's 1972, 73. And somehow, we didn't have cell phones back then, but I got a guy to bring me another half pint. A fucking miracle in my mind. And impossible. Actually, the way I look at it now, it's proof of the devil. But let's call him the lower power. How the hell does a drunk 15-year-old get 100% more alcohol when he needs it? Didn't want it, needs it. My twin brother ditched me there. I slept outdoors. I woke up, there's bug bites all over me. My teeth, I was having a suicidal hangover. That's where it's so bad I want to kill myself. How many of you guys have that? A normal person would stop drinking, wouldn't they? I don't ever want to, and my teeth hurt. I said, I will never drink that shit again. Well, it was gin. I swear to God, I didn't drink gin again until I was about 45 years old. A week later, I wanted to smoke some dope. I'm going to a concert, and I haven't forgotten that. I said, I'll never drink that shit again. And I walk into the place where we're going to smoke pot with a guy. I still know him today. He's a good guy. He's not one of us. There's a watermelon sitting there, and it has a bottle of vodka upside down. And I do immediate math. I said, there's 4 of us here. See what I'm doing? I'm already figuring out that fifth is not enough for 4 people. It's my 2nd time drinking. I'm a real alcoholic. And when that watermelon was split open, I remember focusing just on that square, that vision of that watermelon, and I was counting the number of times my twin brothers and my buddies' hands went in there. Why was I doing that? Because I needed to have more than they had. So 4 and 5, do what the book suggests. Read the book, do what it suggests. Get a sponsor. Do it kind of close to the way he suggests, but do it. Write down what you're afraid of. Write down what you're pissed about. The sexual one, that's really more where have I harmed someone to me. That's what I was taught, and it works. You know, we have the resentment inventory, we have the fear inventory, we have the sexual inventory. I think that's seriously just because Bill, you know, he liked women a little too much. I'm kidding. But my sponsor taught me, you scratch out that sexual inventory, write down where you harmed someone. Because think about it. I wasn't mad at either my mom or my dad. They were still alive. I certainly wasn't afraid of them. And I absolutely swear to God I didn't have sex with either one of them. But they belonged in my 9th step, didn't they? I needed to write down something about them. I had harmed them. Even if it was only in the worry that I had caused them, that's enough. And my sponsor taught me that when you do your amends, do your mom first because she loves you no matter what. Try it. It works. I got done with my 9th step to my mother, and the next words out of her mouth were, I love you. That's pretty cool. Because I had worried her. And what I said to her, we had a script back then. And that script is so that I don't go off into tangents, so I don't let my ego or my fears of what you think. I can't say, Jay, I'm sorry that I was talking about you behind your back, but you really are a jerk. Right? That's what I'm sorry, Jay, I don't mean that. That's not true about him. It might be true about John here, or Jensen, but it's true about me. I'm a fucking asshole. I really am. And I hate myself. And that's why I have to do the 5th step properly. I have to get to the root cause of why I allow myself to do something that's fucking me up as bad as alcohol did. And why I have to understand that I really need to quit entirely. It's not good enough to become a controlled drinker who gets so smashed at your stepson's graduation that you actually suggest, since you're a soccer player and his girlfriend's a soccer player, if you and I got married, we'd have kids that could play soccer. I actually did that.
Oh my God.
You think I owed my stepsons a bed? But I don't apologize. That script says, can I have a few minutes of your time? It does go, and I'm in recovery now. Boy, wait till you see this. I've got this now. It doesn't say that. Don't say that. If you're saying that, talk to somebody else who's made that mistake like I did. Call me. I'll give my number to anybody here. It means you say, I did this and I was wrong. I'm going to try, because if you fail, don't beat yourself up. Just try again. I'm going to try not to do it anymore. Here's what I'm going to do about what I did. Have I left anything out? By the way, when I got to that part with my soon-to-be ex-wife, when I did and I said, have I left anything out? You know what she said to me? She said, Peachy, you need to take me to dinner because it's going to take me a couple hours to tell you the shit you left out. But see, I don't react to that. If I'm smart, I don't go drinking because of the way she thinks of me. I realize that, well, shit, what she said to me makes me want to drink. I've got a real problem with drinking alcohol, don't I? So, I'm at the 9th step. 6 and 7. Read the 12 and 12. I was a literature major in college. I read a ton. Chapter 6 and 7 in the 12 and 12 had more of an effect on my life and my need to change the way I think than anything I've ever read before. I can read a novel about Jack Reacher and believe that I'm 6 foot 4 inches tall and powerful and could beat the shit out of anybody, but that's not true, is it? And I can go to a meeting and hear you talk about how you've changed your life and they go, I can change mine, but that's not true, is it? I have to change the way I think, and I have to change the way I think about myself. You know, my nicknames are Speechy and Preachy. Can you tell why? I don't talk about recovery like this except for one reason, because I'm passionate about this, because it is nothing but the truth. And if I'm not rigorously honest with myself, my amends don't mean anything, do they? They're just like my old confessions. I'm going to do it again. And I have to do these weird steps, 10, which we talked about in depth, really. We have talked a lot about them. They are my life now, because I cannot afford to think poorly of myself any longer. And so when I'm wrong, I have to promptly admit it, so I stop feeling that way immediately. When I have a revolving thought, these people that say I don't think about alcohol until I'm in a meeting, fuck them. I still think about alcohol all these years later, right? I know that revolving thought's going to come. Do you know what the changes, the profound personality change that I've had has taught me to do? When the thought comes in, it's bad, it's going to piss me off or make me afraid or regret or whatever. I know it's coming back, don't I? You all know what I'm talking about. Revolving thoughts are a big problem for us because we're self-centered, right? If we weren't self-centered, we would care about what our activities, our drug addiction, our alcohol addiction is doing to those who love us. We would care. I'm not saying we're selfish, but we certainly are the center of our universe. We have to change that way of thinking. And so when a revolving thought comes in, I say out loud, and I'm going to suggest this to you, but don't go around saying, Pete, she taught me this, because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, this is not group therapy, but this works for me. I say less duration, less frequency, less intensity. And by saying out loud, I displace that negative thought. It goes away. And what I'm doing is I'm reminding myself, like, you know, I don't practice these principles like a lawyer or a doctor. I used to think I could fool you that I do, but I don't. I'm not very good at this shit. I practice them like a little kid at baseball practice the second time ever. I'm not very good at this. And so what I'm doing is I'm telling myself, calm down, relax, take it easy. There's a place in the book where those words are indented. And just like italics, it's the only place where the words are indented. That means they're important. And it says, take it easy, one day at a time, live and let live. It's right after this, and I'm going to close with this, because the 11th step is up to you, and the 12th step, We've already talked about that. But there are two places in the book. I might have time to get to them, but no, I don't need to. There's a place on page 52 I suggest you read it. It's called The Bedevilments. And it talks about we were filled with misery and depression. We couldn't seem to make a living. We had real trouble with personal relationships. There's about 4 other problems that they list, and I had all those problems in 2010 when I relapsed and ended up in a halfway house after 3.5 years of recovery. You know, I know what I'm talking about. Later on, it does what the book always does. When it describes me and it describes the problem, it always gives me a solution. And the paragraph after those bedevilments on page 52, it says the most amazing thing. I began to watch other people begin to solve their problems with a simple reliance on the spirit of the universe. And I realized that Peachy's ideas do not work, but God, Buddha, whatever, his ideas do. That changed my life. That was the topic less than 3 days after I relapsed in 2010. It changed my life. There's another place that changed my life. Before then, before I relapsed, I was trying to show off, right? I wanted the girls to like me. I didn't like the big book thumpers. You know, I didn't like the guys who could quote the big book because the girls were impressed with them. So even though I hated them, I was going to be like them, and I was looking for things I could quote in the big book. I'm just being honest. That's how silly I am. And I read in the family afterwards the line where it said, "We are not a glum lot," and we really aren't. And I said, "Oh, that's a popular one. I'll remember that one." But being me, I remember the line before the line after the page number so I could quote it. But then something said, "Keep reading." And I read this, and I haven't done much of this today. It's because of situations. Normally I can tell a great joke, but I haven't been funny at all in this. I'm sorry. Call me back. I'll tell you a joke the next time. It says, "Therefore we think cheerfulness and laughter are useful things." Now this is the people who recovered, the 100 that helped write the book, talking to me. And I said, "Oh, that's cool." And I used to quote it by Hiram, that old man. He one time said, "Peachy says this a lot," but then he quoted the part I didn't include, but I need to include it. He says, "But why shouldn't we be happy? For we have recovered," past tense. The instant you stop using, you've recovered, according to this book, "and have the ability to help others." How cool is that? But you have to be doing it for a couple of years before you realize that. Each one of you, your story is going to help someone. Precisely because it's as rough as it is. You can talk to somebody who's fucked up their life totally and has no way of seeing out of it. You can say, "I got out of it." You can too. Or you could do the other thing, because my higher power was leading me to the top of the next page where it says, "We no longer subscribe to this ideal that life is a vale of tears, but was once just that for many of us." God didn't make me miserable. I did that myself. Here's the key part. So why do I continue to manufacture my own misery? And it ends that paragraph with this, and this is the key to everything I'm saying. When trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize upon it as an opportunity to prove His omniscience. And what I'm saying is that if you are having trouble with steps 2 and 3, at least understand that Peachy has learned that those 2 steps are really true. My higher power is all powerful when it comes to at least being better than I am about how I think about myself. My name is Peachy. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you very much for talking.